Here we go. In our topic today, build a business that facilitates your life. And I think Alex Schlinsky from Prospecting on Demand, Prospecting on Demand is such an amazing organization. I don't know where to start out, but these guys are a group of small business owners, really digital marketing agency owners that, Alex coaches, and he's the head muse, I guess. I don't know what to call you, Alex, here, but your group of people have something amazing. They're all connected. I've seen that they're so tightly connected to each other. There's something special going on in this group. And, these guys are all agency owners, mostly, I think. Alex can correct me if I'm wrong. But, yes. And Alex has really shown them a way, like he's carved out a way for himself. And now he's showing it to these amazing folks to start out their agencies, take him to a $10,000 a month monthly recurring revenue, and then from there hit six figures. And I guess at 10,000 you're already at six figures. From there, build out a 6 to 7 figure business. But I think at the core of it, what Alex really talks about is that it's a business that shouldn't consume your life, right? And that's kind of the topic over here. So absolutely. Alex Schlinsky, welcome to our webinar, man. I think this is going to be really epic because so many of us struggle with this thing. I did this through my agency career, 14 years. And, for I think 10 years, 12 years in a row, I was like stuck in a rut, couldn't get over $300,000 in annual revenue. I got to that 6-figure point, but I was the agency, If I got hit by a bus, everything will fall apart. So over to you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Azar, and everyone here. I appreciate you checking this out, whether you're live or on replay. Yeah, I think, building a business that facilitates your life is really important to me. I think a lot of entrepreneurs in particular forget that they have agency, that they have the ability to choose. And I don't mean like agency like you have a marketing agency, like agency you have the incredible ability to choose. I think a lot of times people forget that in so many other areas of life, you don't have the ability to choose. You are kind of forced to do what other people are providing or forcing you to do based on having a job or having a boss or any of those types of things. So making sure that ultimately you have the ability to choose is super important. My son just came into the room, so just gonna let him pop up here while we're doing this and see if he's going to be easy to deal with until my wife comes here. So I apologize. But in terms of building a business that facilitates your life, he's a perfect example. Like everything that I do is for him, right? I mean, everything I build is to spend time with him. One of the things that, it's really important to know about me in general before we dive into this content is I built my business because my dad got sick when I was younger. And when he got sick, it was realized very quickly he didn't actually have a business, he had a job. And when he got sick and couldn't work, we felt the repercussions of that, right? And so when I built my company, my goal was to build a business, not something that was forced upon just me working. And then I ended up having to have open heart surgery when this little guy was inside of my wife's chest,
wow.
Right? Like he was five, my wife was 5 months pregnant. And so I was tested myself on the things that I had chose, which was, hey, did I build a business? Or if I'm off work for 2 or 3 months, will I be able to grow and be able to, help the people that I work with without working myself specifically? And the answer was yes, because I had built a business that better facilitated my life. So my goal ultimately with anyone that I coach and work with is always making sure that you understand really what you want in this life and in this business, because you have agency and you get to choose. And there's 3 steps to do it. And we can talk about that today. And it's very, very easy to do.
Excellent. Excellent.
It's design and it's do. Define, design, and do. And we're going to talk about that today.
Love it, man. This is going to be a great value bomb for everyone who's listening. One question before we head into our slide deck here, Alex, is that what made you decide to work with digital marketing agency owners? Like, why did you pick these guys? Because I've been one, question. And I felt really underappreciated for been doing the hustle and stuff like that, getting everything done, but not a lot of people I can't relate with. A lot of other people, other business owners. So why did you pick this group?
So when I was 19 years old, I started my marketing agency, even though I didn't know that that's what it was. It was just a side hustle because I didn't have a paradigm of what a marketing agency was. I think when I was younger, marketing to me was like billboard advertising or radio ads or television. I didn't really even think about like anything digital as being marketing. But I actually started my business by working with attorneys and posting for them on Facebook, and doing constant contact newsletters. And I did that for about 4 years in college, making anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 a month, which was amazing at that time. And I wasn't smart enough as an entrepreneur yet. I wasn't smart enough as an entrepreneur yet to think that like I can make this into a business. I was very focused on school. So I just thought like I was really smart as a side hustler. After I finished school, I realized pretty quickly I did not want to go back to school, which was either going to be the choice to become a psychologist or an attorney. And so I thought, well, maybe this side hustle I can make more money with it. And that's when I started searching more about it. And thus, as soon as you search, all these ads come in. So at that time, it was like Dan Henry, Ty Lopez, Dave Rogan-Moser, Sam Ovens. And I paid for a couple of the courses just to like prove that I'm willing to invest in myself the way that I was asking my clients to do so. And as soon as I saw what they were doing, I saw two things. One, the business that I'm running right now is very sloppy and very not efficient, and I can make it a lot better. And then two, I could do this way better than any of them in terms of coaching and community. And I love community. I didn't like working with the attorneys. They're constantly rude, never happy.
I was going to ask you that.
And they're just not, they're just not the type of professional type of person I usually, vibe with really well. Doesn't mean I didn't have a lot of success or create good relationships, but I wanted to do something that was very community driven.
You did that for 4 years still, right? And
I actually still have that agency. So I did it. I've done it now for 12 years. It was just, I focused on it as my main thing for 7 years. 4 years was kind of a side hustle. 3 years, I really built it with my wife. And then we started POD in 2016, 2017. And doing POD was because one, we were very successful in my marketing agency and building it. And two, we had seen that this was a new business opportunity. Like the coaching element was something I never considered, but it's something I'm very gifted at. And I love doing it. So that's why we ended up kind of diving into it.
You do a lot of public speaking as well.
A lot.
I've heard you talk, and you really like it energizes you. And recently, you were at some Ivy League schools speaking as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got the chance to speak at Columbia University in June, which was incredible. And then in July, I had the opportunity to speak at Harvard, which was, the pinnacle thus far of my speaking career, which was amazing. It was just an incredible experience. It was really cool because both of those weren't really business focused. They were about the power of intention, which is still very relevant to what I coach and teach. The thing is, when I coach the power of intention, it's about my heart surgery and about how much I overworked myself and created this problem that I didn't realize I was making, and that time is so valuable. And I inherently, I coach that in POD as a mantra of building a business that facilitates your life. We just focus on the details of how to do it in POD. So when I spoke at Columbia and Harvard, it wasn't about like how to sell or how to prospect. It was why it's important to have a business that facilitates your life and be effective with your time. So it was really cool and amazing experience, and hopefully get more of those opportunities in the coming months.
I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from you, my friend. I'm definitely tuned since I found out about you. It's been an amazing learning experience from you so far. Can we pull up the first slide, guys? I think this is going to be where we start out here, and how to achieve time and financial freedom. Like, how do you kind of get those things side by side? Because I can tell you, I had a huge issue with that, man. Like, if I found some freedom in my agency, it wouldn't be making the same amount of money, and
Absolutely.
Vice versa, right? So if I was working a lot, then I was working like crazy at all hours, and I had no, nothing else to do. So like, how do you balance these things?
Yeah. I think the first thing is admitting that there's a challenge, of course, here, but the biggest thing is understanding those 3 steps that I just mentioned, which is define, design, and do. I think too often people will listen to webinars or YouTube videos or go to events, and they'll let a guru or an expert or someone who's made more money than them tell them the appropriate definition of what life should be. And that is a completely skewed mindset. You're never going to be satisfied by trying to follow the path of someone that reached a goal that you don't want to go to. Just imagine it in a simple format, right? Like if you are just following someone who's taking an Uber cab somewhere, right? And they go to a restaurant that you don't want to go to, and you spent an hour and a half in an Uber following them, well, now you're dissatisfied because you're at the restaurant you never wanted to be at. And that's the same exact thing that people do when they hear time and financial freedom. They listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, or they listen to Dan Henry, or me, or Tony Robbins, or whoever it is, right? Not to put myself in those names, just in general, people listen to these gurus out there, and then they'll be upset that they didn't achieve a certain level of success that they wanted because they never defined it. So if you want time and financial freedom, the first thing is clarity, right? If you don't have clarity on definition, then you can't achieve it. And the easiest way that I explain this is through a metaphor of a race, right? Most people know who Usain Bolt is, right? The greatest short distance runner in the history of the world, right? And then not as many people know him, but he's the Usain Bolt of long distance running, which is named Mo Farah. And Mo Farah has like all of the records for long distance running, for like marathons and 4-hour races and everything. So the question is, who wins in a race, Azar? Usain Bolt or Mo Farah?
The long distance or the short distance?
And that's the question, right? It depends on how long the race is. And I think that's the question of like, when someone says, how do you achieve time and financial freedom synonymously? It's like, well, that answer to one person is completely different than it is to another. Let's get an example here. If you have Carol, who has 3 children, all under the age of school, or 2 to 5 years old, and she has a part-time job and she runs a marketing agency, right? And then you have Chris, who has no kids. He's 19 years old and has no other job. Do you think that their time and financial freedom goals and, end race is the same? No,
not at all.
It's going to be completely different. So if Carol and Tim, or whoever the name was that I used, are different, right, people, how can we answer that question for both of them? So the first step, like I said, is defining. You have to define first, and most importantly, what this means to you. So to me, time freedom, to me particularly, is taking half a Friday off to spend time with Ellie, my son that you guys just saw, right? Like that's really important to me. That's a non-negotiable to me. Now, do I break it sometimes? Absolutely, Azar. And I want to make sure this is clear. I'm super not perfect. I'm really good at coaching. That doesn't mean I have the discipline every time to back it up myself. And I think it's important that I'm always upfront about that, because I don't want anyone to ever think that just because I know the answers, I do it perfectly. I always use the personal training metaphor that I think is extremely valuable. It is 1,000 times easier to tell someone to do 100 push-ups than it is to do 100 push-ups. It's a lot easier how you define your time freedom and financial freedom than it is to do it and then take action on it, which is why, even though I've defined mine, which is taking half of Fridays off, I don't do it every single Friday perfectly, because I'm a human being and I'm not fully disciplined and I'm not perfect. And I think that's okay. So I just want to make that clear. So again, defining is the first step to being able to build time and financial freedom, so that you're not following a path that you never clarified. Now, here's the thing about definition, that why people don't do it at the end of the day. The reason why people don't do it is they're fearful of 2 things. They're fearful of, they don't know exactly what's going to make them happy. So they don't know exactly what amount of money they need, and they don't know exactly how much time they need. So they never define it. So they just end up running a race without ever defining it. And then because of the way that capitalism is and entrepreneurship-ism is, and especially even our agency bubble is, there's this very weird mantra of hustle culture of more. You're always at arm's reach of success. You're never actually at success. I think contentment and satisfaction has become a bad word. It's become the F word in marketing and in capitalism, but I really strongly disagree with that. I really don't think it is, because here's the thing. When I was wheeled in for my open heart surgery in October 15th, 2020, I didn't give a crap about more money. I didn't care about, hustling harder. The only thing I wanted to do was live. I really just wanted to be content. I really just wanted to be satisfied and fulfilled. And living through that was incredible, right? And I think the problem is, no one understands the mantra of there's always a bigger fish. There's always a bigger mountain to climb. So if you don't define your success, if you don't define what time freedom you want and define what financial freedom you want, you're never going to be successful, because your brain will not allow it. We're always our own worst enemy. You can achieve any number. And I'm telling you this from my personal experience. When I was younger, before I defined it, I was like, if I could just get to 10K a month profit consistently, I'd be so happy.
Yeah.
And you do that. And then you're like, well, if I could just get to 20, I'd be really happy. And then you do that. And and then it's 50, and then it's 100. And then you realize that it's actually has no intrinsic value whatsoever, that it's just your brain tricks on you that you're never reaching the finish line because you find it. And it's scary.
That's
Shitty.
such a beautiful point. So you can really achieve time freedom and financial freedom simultaneously. You don't have to sacrifice on one or the other. And
No,
the
you do not.
time one is so critical, man, that, like I can't imagine you going through that open heart surgery at that moment. You're probably not thinking about your financial freedom and things like you're thinking
Not at
about your
all.
time freedom. You want to be able to spend this time with your family, your son who's about to come into this world.
That's
And
correct.
that's all you're thinking about in that particular moment. So everyone's going to have their own moment of clarity, but that's so important, because we always get moments of clarity in hindsight. When the other weekend, we were at the river, and I went on a tube, and my buddies came in on this raft, and their raft flipped over, right? And river is shallow. It's Bow River. It's not very, it's kind of like a lazy river. But these guys were first time in there, and they were struggling to get to the other side of the river. And I was just sitting on the other side and everybody else around them. And we knew it's really easy. But their struggle in that moment is very, and that's where we have our moments of weaknesses where sometimes we slip. But in hindsight, we'll get that clarity. Let's put that clarity on the front side so that we know where we're headed and try to follow the path.
And that's why I coach. The idea of coaching is that you share your shared experiences, pitfalls, things that you've realized that didn't work or did work, and you share those with other people so they can make it happen faster and quicker and cut the learning curve. And I think the thing is, like, people will listen to this and they still won't define it. They still won't get clear on the finish line, whether it's a short-term race or a long-term race. And again, it's because they're afraid that they don't know what will make them happy. So they say, I'll give you an example. They'll say, if I get to $20,000 of take home per month, I'll be happy. And if I get to take Fridays off every single week moving forward, then I'll be happy. And then you get $20,000 a month and you get Fridays off and you're still not satisfied. And they think that that's a failure. It's not a failure, right? What it ends up being is just an optimization piece. Everyone has this idea of what they think will make them happy. But when you get there, if you're not yet, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means it needs to be re-optimized. The goal isn't that you have everything done correctly from get-go. It's very rare that someone, especially a younger person, like anywhere from 18 to 35, that you know exactly what's going to make you happy right away. Part of happiness a lot of times is spontaneity. So if you find something that spontaneously ended up making you happy, like serendipitously, you're just, I'm so happy. What was the thing that triggered that happiness? How? And what can we do to optimize for that consistently? Happiness quotient is like the main format that I'm looking for all the time. Like, I want to be happy. I want to be successful. I want to feel like I did something of worth. That's what I'm looking for. And you just have to define it consistently. You have to define what the win is. And even if you don't hit it, it's totally okay. And then the second reason people don't define it is because they're afraid that they won't achieve the goals or aspirations. So they set up these very lofty goals, what people call BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals. And they're like, I'm only going to be happy when I'm making $100 million a year. And when I have to work only 2 hours per day total. And it's like, if that's what you're defining as your happiness, one, I feel so sad and sorry for you that that's what you've identified as being your own level of success. And two, it's like, you're ultimately likely not going to achieve that until you're much older, or you've invested a crazy amount of money that most people don't have the interest in doing. So being reasonable on trying to test out what your goals are and then having stretch goals for that, that's what it comes down to, because too many people find themselves as dissatisfied.
And enjoying the journey throughout the process, right? Like, I see you and your amazing agency fans do that. You guys have so much fun when you guys are together and when you guys are on this call, and it doesn't even feel like a sales call when you're talking to your team, or a coaching call. It's like you're really, really connecting at a different level. So that was amazing, man. Like, so you start out with clarity, you figure out what you want. And let's not define happiness in terms of dollar values, right? Like, I think and I would so totally agree with you. Started out the agency, getting to $10,000 a month was a huge deal. And then once you've gone there, like, can I get to 20? Can I get to 30? Can I get 200? Can I get to 200? it's never going to stop, right? You always going to want to continue to build a better business. And that's my, second question to you over here, that, how do you turn your business? So you're talking about these amazing things. We got this clarity. This is what we want to do. And obviously to fund that dream, you're going to need a business. So how do you turn that business into an asset that, continues to keep working for you? Or even if you want to offload it, maybe?
Yeah, it's a great question. So building a business that's an asset is really important. It starts obviously by making sure that you're not stuck in what we call the freelancer trap, which I believe we'll discuss here in just a couple minutes. But the idea behind this all is if essentially you are doing everything yourself, right? There's no asset to be sold. If you can sell your business, it's based on your contracts, based on your IP or intellectual property, your recurring revenue, your profits, and then your EBITDA, which that's like for a different conversation with a much more skilled person than me on explaining it. What I was saying, just to recap that back here, the idea of this process is to make sure that you understand what assets need to be in place in order to sell. And that really just comes down to making sure you have the core systems in place, which I'll break down for you here. These are the core systems that are required, but overall, the biggest overarching theme is you cannot be the one driving every aspect of the company. You can't be a freelancer, right? You have to be able to build an asset. So these are the assets that you want to consider in terms of systems. Number one is the defined roadmap, right? We just went through this previously just a minute ago, breaking down exactly what's needed for your financial success and ultimately your time freedom success. The next is productized services. So your value ladder of making sure you have something that's repeatable, scalable, consistent, not something that's new every single time, but the same thing over and over for replicable sales and growth. The next one is a predictable prospecting system, which is going to be how you consistently have people raise their hand and showcase interest in working with you. Obviously, the one that follows up with that, of course, is the sales system, making sure the people that are interested in working with you are actually working with you. You have a good enough close rate, you understand the math behind it of your cost per acquisition, and you're able to grow. One just tidbit here as we go through it is every outbound methodology that you've heard or been taught, direct mail, cold calling, warm calling, in-person, networking, Facebook messaging, Facebook groups, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, anything should be a means to an end, which should be eventually through your profits of outbound, you should be investing in inbound advertising so you can create a better formula to grow your business. Number 5 is retention management and client success. You have to make sure that you're retaining your clients. If you're building a business where you're bringing on 5 clients a month and losing 5 clients, or worse, you're bringing on 5 clients a month, losing 6 clients, obviously it's not going in the right direction. The minimum required model should be that you are at least retaining your clients for 6 months. Obviously it should be more, but that's a minimum expectation, okay? Number 6. And this is where RepStack comes in, and they're amazing with this, is hiring and team management, leadership mindset, and culture. So in order to build this business, once you get to probably 5, 6, 7 clients, if you really want to have an asset that's potentially sellable or something that will allow you to have time and financial freedom, you're going to need a team that's going to execute for you based on the systems that you've already put in place. And this element is something that a lot of people really struggle with, which is exactly why RepStack is here for you, to help you find the ideal team members, to help you grow your business and make sure that you're building the business without you having to do everything. And then lastly is probably the simplest but most overlooked aspect of the 7 core systems, which is the financial structure. Just making sure that there is consistent accounting, bookkeeping, optimization of quarterly audits, optimization of quarterly goals, optimization of yearly goals. Just making sure that you have good profitability. People always ask me, like, what's ideal profitability? It's hard to say. Like, for every person is different. I think a rough estimate for most agencies is if you're working very little in the company, like very, very little, and you're doing 30% profit margin, you're doing very well. If you are working a ton in the company and you're doing 30% profit margins, there's probably a really big problem. If you're doing a lot in the company and profits around 50-ish%, you're probably doing okay. But it is very dependent on every person based on the business that they run and all that kind of stuff. But in general,
I've seen most people kind of shoot for 20%. Sometimes it's even hard to get to that point, right? Like I know a lot of us struggle with that. So that's that 7 key framework, Alex. It's beautiful, man. Like how you
and here they are, just in case I think wants to see them.
Excellent. This is beautiful. We'll add this to the replay when we send it out to everyone. This would be great because this is, again, your point of clarity and it talks about that, right? Like I've been an agency owner for the last 14 years. I haven't seen these things put together in 7 steps for myself, right? So this is beautiful, man. It simplifies the entire project. This is how you build the business. You kind of focus on these 7 things, and that's it. It's that simple. That's amazing, man.
Right.
Let's move on. I think one of the things that you're talking about and you've talked about is to avoid the being a freelancer trap. I think that's a good question. I think from what I understand of what you're talking about over here is, and I've been guilty of that. I've been in my agency in Calgary. I've been the one-man show. I've been doing everything. I usually always had somebody to outsource the work to, but I was going 100 miles an hour for my clients. I was onboarding them. I was doing the sales. I'm doing everything. If I have to take a month off and God forbid go back home and visit my family, I couldn't even think of leaving Calgary. I couldn't even think of traveling outside of Calgary, man, because all my clients relied on me at all times. They expected me to drop everything and show up at their store with my cell phone recording, a new product or whatever that was. But that's kind of what I was doing. I was running at 100 miles an hour. The max I ever did was $300,000. Even though it brought in good amount of income for myself, but I just couldn't get past that barrier. So, so what, how do we avoid this, man? Like, this is a real struggle here.
Yeah, it's super common to see this issue. So to me, the freelancer trap is like indicated pretty simply, like you've made money, but you ultimately have built a job for yourself, right? I think the difference between a starter and a freelancer is the freelancers figured out like, oh, like I can sell. I know how to get some clients in. My offers may be a little bit custom, but it's like, okay, well, now I've got what we call a Frankenstein business. I've got like 5 to 7 clients. They all do like slightly different businesses. I'm delivering slightly different things like SEO and Facebook ads and websites. And I can't really take any time off. I can't really build documented processes. I can't sell anymore. I can't go reach out. I can't take any time off. Like, what do I do? How do I hire someone? How do I retain my clients longer? How do I create predictable client acquisition? And ultimately, the biggest thing of avoiding the freelancer trap is just, again, first designing what you want, right? Clarifying really what you want. I don't want anyone to have the thought process that being a freelancer in general is a bad thing. I don't get to decide if being a freelancer is a bad thing. There's many people that use like Upwork or FreeUp, and they'll be on there for years, and that's their job, being a freelancer, working for other companies.
That's what I did.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, that's completely fine. But if you find yourself constantly stressed out that you're not being fulfilled, that you're doing consistently one-off project work and it's all different and it's hard to have consistency, you're on a revenue roller coaster of this month I made 8,000, last month I made 15, next month I'm looking like I'm going to make 2,000, and it's causing you crazy anxiety and stress because you're not putting any
crazy, man. Like there was times, Alex, in my journey, when I had to wake up first thing in the morning, or as soon as it hit the 1st of January, and process my clients' transactions. And even if one of those credit cards get declined, I was praying that, man, I need all of this cash coming in. God forbid any of those credit cards decline. I'm screwed, man. I can't pay the rent. And I didn't enjoy being in that feeling, man. Even though on the other side, I was still making good amount of money, but just going 100 miles an hour, and man, it gives me goosebumps just when I think about those days. So that's incredible that you talk about this. And then, let's talk a little bit about, you're talking about setting up these processes. How do we get our hands on a process like that? Like, like for example, on the fulfillment side, or for example, on the sales side and things like that. Do we go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. So to me, first and foremost, in terms of like building out these processes, the first thing that I would understand is just the difference between horizontal and vertical scaling, I think, is how you get away from the freelancer trap model. I'll just clarify that the opposite of the freelancer trap model is what my kind of IP is, my intellectual property, which is 2 things, right? Anti-hustling which we've already kind of went through and discussed about, being clear on definition. And then the second piece, which is the infinitely scalable agency, which is building a business that you can scale to any number based on simple math, essentially, right? And the only way to do that, frankly, and being blunt rather than sugarcoating it, is having what's called, really truthfully, a boring business. The reason why it's boring is because it's consistently the same thing over and over. Imagine this. Imagine if you loved a show so much, right? Let's go with Breaking Bad, right? People love that show. It's a great show. But imagine if you just had to watch one episode over and over and over and over. It would probably be boring, right? It'd probably be pretty boring. But every single piece of dialogue, exactly what scene's going to happen, everything that's going to happen. It's been Well, in business, you do that, meaning, let's say, for example, you work with roofers and you run Facebook ads for roofers, and you have an offer that guarantees them 20 appointments per month. And you have a team that has a very consistent onboarding process because you know exactly what you need from your roofers, and you know exactly what type of ads to run. You know exactly how to report to them. Then all that you need to do is consistently get roofers to buy your product over and over and over and over again, and then retain them. Is that boring? Sure, it's boring. I can agree with that, right? My business, for clarity, right? This is what my business is on my agency side. I work with attorneys. We charge them $5,000 a month, and we run Google ads for them. That's it, nothing else. When they come and ask for SEO, we recommend them elsewhere. If they ask for Facebook ads, we recommend them elsewhere. If they give us a referral that's outside of our niche, we recommend them elsewhere because it's not useful for our time. It's a waste of our time. But what that does is allows us to scale vertically, which is one offer, one niche, and scale. Now, people end up doing more than one offer, which is totally fine because you can still build consistency with that. But just talking about in the simplest format, building this boring business is what will end up allowing you to be a freelancer, not in a trap, but in abundance. So I'll give you an example of a person that I worked with. Her name was Michelle. Michelle had a creative freelance agency that she was on Upwork for like 4 or 5 years. And she had made a bunch of money in that time. I don't know exactly what it was, but a good amount of money, more than what her job was at that time. So she can quit. But her stress was that it was random. Some months she would have crazy good months. Other months she would have bad months. And other months she would have to literally stop the requests coming in. And so she was like, what do I do if I have more tickets than I can handle? Right? Because like I'm saying no to $3,000 to $5,000 because I can't do the work for it. And so I explained to her about this opportunity to build what we call this boring business model, right? This is true. We're going to build a boring business. We're going to vertically scale a boring business. And so we decided that we're going to work with medical spas because she already worked with some of them. And she's going to do Facebook ads for them and promise 10 appointments per month for this med spa agency. In a year, literally 1 year, she had built a business that was $50,000 a month recurring revenue. She had about 25 clients because she charged $2,000 per client. I think it was a little bit more, but you get the idea roughly, right? And at that point, she was making roughly 45%. So roughly like you're thinking like $25,000-ish a month, which is way more than she was ever making before. And so she got back on Upwork and just did the work that she wanted to do. So she had this website that's now creative and it has nothing to do with med spas, but she has the time to do it and wants to do it. That's the benefit of designing, right? So now she has a med spa agency that, it's the same thing every time. It's the same 6 questions she's going to ask every med spa. It's the same 3 ad sets she's going to do. It's the same exact reporting. Yeah, it's kind of replicable. It's kind of boring, but the truth is it delivers results, right? So my goal for everyone that I work with and anyone watching this training is build the business that's boring first, get to the revenue number that you're comfortable with and happy with. And then everything else, you get to choose what to do because no one can tell you what's good or not. Like people ask me, like, can I take this website project? It's like, who am I that gets to decide whether you or not can take it? The question is, does it align with where you're at currently? Is it worth your time? Is it going to withhold you from your goal or get you closer to your goal? And are you happy to take the project? And if so, then yes. It's not black or white. The simplest thing is build the boring business and then do what you want with the additional time freedom you have. That's how you break out of the freelancer trap. That's how you go to freelance abundance instead.
That's amazing. And after all of that stuff, if you still want to, indulge your creative side, you'll have the time, you'll have put aside carved out time for stuff that you enjoy doing, just like in that example. So if I am a agency owner, Alex, and I'm maybe starting out, or a guy like me who struggled for over a decade, and just going through this freelancer trap, and what should I do? Like, I think in my opinion, if I see this clearly, and I've had experience working with coaches and working with you right now, it's totally life changing, right? So like, what would you recommend that these guys do? What should be the first step for an agency owner who's looking to do exactly what you just told us?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we already went through it, but for sure, the first thing, define what you want first. We cannot run a race if we don't know what the finish line is. My favorite question, and you'll see Azar at the event, I'll do this. I'm going to say, who wants more money? Every single person in the room will raise their hand, everyone, because that's what everyone does, that everyone wants more money, right? When you're giving that option, whoever says, I don't want more money, it's very, very rare. And the thing is, it's like, wanting more is like running on a treadmill. You're going to run a lot, but you don't get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere. So you have to define it first. And that's going to be the biggest key. Secondarily, in terms of the assets that you need to grow, there's so many available trainings out there, whether it's my training or other coaching trainings, YouTube videos, free insights on Google. Like there's so much that you can get to build this. My recommendation, though, that's easy is first, if you're just getting started, like brand new, by far the best thing is your local community. If you're religious in any way, that's always the best community. Like I'm a Jew, I grew up in a Jewish community. My first like 8 clients were all from my temple. It just was easy because I'm like, hey, I'm 18 years old and I'm starting a business. Would you be open to letting me try to help you? And they're like, yeah, of course, because they want to help the local Jewish community kid that they're part of their community. Like it just works really well. And this works in all religions. Like doesn't matter you're Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, it doesn't matter. It works. People want to help people who ask for help. Like that's how it goes. There's this very famous Chris Rock story. I think it's Chris Rock, but like he's his car broke down on the side of the road. Chris Rock is like one of the most famous people in the world. He's even more famous now after getting slapped by Will Smith. But this is before this is before the slap. He got broken down on the side of the road, and he kind of just stood there, just seeing if anyone would stop, and no one stopped. And he's like, all right, if no one's going to help me, then I might as well like put the car in neutral and push it myself. And as soon as he started doing that, people came over to try to help him push the car because people want to help people who are trying to help themselves. So when I'm saying I'm trying to help myself by running a business, my community is going to want to support me because I'm trying. And that's the same idea. So if you're brand new, that's a great place to start. If you're not brand new and you're in the freelancer trap and you've been doing this for some time, you have some clients, go back to the last clients and identify like, where were you the most fulfilled financially and with fulfillment, like personal enjoyment? And can you replicate that success and start building that product for that boring business? So I worked with a jeweler and I loved working with them. I made their website and it was great. And I helped them sell new products on e-com. Maybe I can do that moving forward and go start building that, start reaching out to other jewelers in your local area and start seeing if you can build that business from there. That would be my recommendation. Obviously, if you want more additional support and you want like step-by-step guidance on it, that's what we do in Prospecting on Demand, which you're more than welcome to reach out to me and I'll happily help you as best I can on that.
I think Alex has been too humble on that side. I would highly recommend that any agency owner, who's had kind of similar anxiety attacks like I did, building out this particular business, reach out to Alex and his team at Prospecting on Demand. Because really what you're doing with a guy like Alex is that you're buying speed, right? You're going to like the infrastructure that Alex is giving you right now. It's good enough, to maybe get clarity on a few things. But if we can get our hands on, all the templates, everything that, the system, the process that Alex is talking about, we're really investing money in speed. And, the journey that would have taken you maybe 3 years by yourself with a group like Alex's, which has such an amazing culture, like I can't talk enough about that, is that you're going to be a part of a group of people who understand. And then B, you get to buy speed because now instead of 3 years, you're going to be able to get there in the next 1 year. And, some of the biggest breakthroughs, Alex, I've had over the last 2 to 3 years are because I decided to invest in speed by learning more, reading more books, audiobooks, podcasts, your podcast, your webinars, and then investing in coaching services. That's given me the biggest breakthroughs. And, I wish I had the insight to do that 10 years ago, to come up with extra money, that, $20,000 credit card bill that I'm going to rack up on trying a few different things. Let's just try, somebody and a person like Alex and go to POD and just get that stuff done faster, man. It's going to be so much less stressful. You won't have to be guys like me and Alex who've kind of gone through these roads, and we've kind of be brutally bruised in these wars and things like that. And I guess now Alex has a great stories to tell about these things. But that's what you're buying. You're buying speed. I highly recommend taking a look at prospecting on demand and what Alex and his team is doing there. It's been a pleasure, Alex, for you having here. I hope this helps out a lot of people.
For having me and the kind words. I'm grateful for it. I think a lot of people, they ask about like people's hourly rates for consulting. And one of the things I would just consider is, like, as we close out, there's never an effective dollar amount for your time that's like appropriate. I think my brain has changed a lot over the last 10 years. Obviously, after having surgery, it changes. But, there's like people that get a job that are like $20 an hour and you think that's good. But then you spend 1 hour with your child and you're like, how much would I pay if I only had 1 hour left to be with my child? And the number is infinite, right? Like there is no number. And it's certainly nowhere near $20. And one of the things that I see a lot of entrepreneurs kind of put a baseline on is like $100 an hour. I would challenge you to do anything no less than $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour. And so when I have someone come to me and they're like, how much is an hour of your time? And if they want to talk to me about sales, for example, because that's like the main thing that I personally coach, like it'll be $1,000, right? And they're like, $1,000, that's a lot for your time. I'm like, you're not paying for an hour of my time. You're paying for 12 years of my experience. And I'm going to do years of your experience, which is exactly what you were just talking about. And oftentimes, not to be rude, but I'll say like, if you're asking me, would I rather have an hour to spend with you for $1,000 or do I want to have an hour to spend with my child? I'm going to pick the child. Lucky for you, he's in daycare, so I can still do it. And that usually gets them to the point of laughing, and then they'll do it. So it's something just to consider, but I think everyone here just needs to respect their time more. But just finish with this so like, just define the things you want in your life, design them to be able to build out those plans to happen, and then do it, right? Don't skip the first two steps. That's the thing I want you taking away from this training. So many people skip the first two steps and they just do and they just do and they just do. You have to define it. You have to build a roadmap to it, and then you got to get it done. And if you do that, you're going to be super successful. And if you don't, you will never be successful because you never defined what success is. And that is going to be the key. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, man. This was amazing, dude.